In this video, we'll learn a variety of Excel functions and options for Chapter 3. So make sure you're on the first tab in the Excel file that says 3.4 mean and median, because we're now going to use Excel to help us solve problem 4 out of the textbook. This is the same problem that was also on the worksheet. Recall in this scenario, we've got 16 cars and the time it takes for these cars to get out of a parking lot. So if we wanted to calculate the average, for instance, and you'll notice that I have the formulas written out in text so that you can see what it looks like, and then I'll demonstrate how it works. So we'll select the cell next to it, and we'll type in equal sign, and then average, and you'll notice that Excel tries to pre-populate the formula for you. So you could click on the formula you wanted, or you could have continued to type it in full. You'll want to make sure to have the parentheses, because this is going to capture which numbers that you want to use. So Excel asks, well, what numbers do you want to average? So I'll go ahead and select our data values, and then make sure to close my parentheses and then hit enter. So here we have our average time in seconds that it takes for a car to exit the parking lot at 117.0625. This should match what you saw by hand done in the lecture video as well. Let's go ahead and also calculate the median. Here we'll type in equal sign median and then do the parentheses. Again, Excel asks, what numbers do you want to find the median for? So I'll select by holding down and dragging my mouse to choose my data values. You can also manually type in A2 colon A17, meaning we know that the cell that I want to select is A2 through A17. And then I'll close my parentheses and then hit enter. So now I know my median is at 126.5. Let's move on to how to calculate mode. Here's the example that we saw in the lecture as well, and the formula to calculate our mode is equal sign mode dot, and this is an abbreviation of single because we're only looking for the most frequently occurring mode. Type in my parentheses, and again I'm going to select my data. Click on the first one, select through, and then close my parentheses and hit enter. And we see that 20 is the number that appears most often in this data set. Note that you might have multiple modes, and so you can use the mode that says multi, and it will find the various modes for you. If you try to use the mode formulas and there is no mode, meaning there is no number that appears most frequently over any other, you'll get an error message with Excel saying there is none. So that's how you do a mode. Now for the box and whisker, we have data here in miles, for instance. What you'll do is go ahead and select all of our data. We have 45 data points, for instance. And then we'll go to our Insert tab, where we have a variety of charts available to us. And again, this is in Microsoft Office Excel 2016. So here I've got the option to insert a statistic chart. And so right here we have the box and whisker option. Now if you don't have Microsoft Excel 2016, there's not necessarily an easy way to do the box and whisker plot. So now that we have our box and whisker plot prepared for us through Excel, we do want to make some changes. Here in the Design tab, we can go ahead and add chart elements such as titles, for instance, similar to what we did in Chapter 2, if it's applicable. We can also remove and delete content, since I got rid of that one. So if you want to format your data series, you would right-click onto our chart, then choose Format Data Series, and you'll have some options here within the menu. In addition, you can see that our data series is a bit squished, So you can make it larger by modifying the scale here in the format axis. So let me go ahead and label this. This one is miles between fill-ups. And what you'll do is you'll right click and format axis, and here in our format axis menu you can now change your minimum, so the bottom number here, which is currently 0, you can change that to 200, and our maximum, which is the top number up here, we can change that to 360. So this gives us a better view of our box and whisker plot. And I'll go ahead and just type in my title here, miles between fill ups, box and whisker plot. Okay. So let's move on to the next tab, 3.26 variation. So here we're working with problem 26 from the textbook, where we've got a scenario with business executives who flew on business last month. So here's our data. Now if we assumed this is our population, these are the only business execs that we are interested in studying, then we will use these formulas right here to find the variance and standard deviation. If, for instance, when we discuss this data in terms of a sample, and we describe these 6 data points as a sample of the broader population of business executives, then we'll want to use these formulas. So again, it's important we understand the difference between population and sample. So let's go ahead and work with our data. So to get our population variance, you'll do =var dot p. P means population. And Excel will remind you that it's for the population, in case you're wondering. I'll do my parentheses, and then I want to select my data. Close my parentheses and hit enter. Next, I want to do my population standard deviation. So I will do =STD for standard So we'll do $STDEV dot P, again P is for population, my parentheses, and then select my data and close my parentheses. Go ahead and hit enter, and now I have my population variance and standard deviation. Let's do the same thing for our sample variance. Here I'm going to go into the cell, type in =var for variance dot S, where S is for the sample. So again, here Excel guides us to remind us what the formula is used for. Do $, and select our data. And then close our parentheses and hit enter. Lastly, we'll want to do our sample standard deviation using the formula here to our left. We'll type in type in the STDEV for standard deviation, dot S for sample. Again, it says sample here. We'll do the parentheses, select our data, and then close our parentheses and hit enter. And if you want to clean this up or help you with the rounding, you'll select the cells that you want to format, and on the Home tab up the top where it says number, you can use the decimal buttons here to either decrease or increase. So I'm going to click this, and it's going to remove a number at a time. So whether we want it to 3 decimal points or 4 decimal points, Excel will do the rounding for you to avoid any human error. And that's how you'll use Excel to calculate different measures of variation. The last tab here we have is for problem 53 in the textbook, where we're practicing standardizing our values. And so here we have our formula that we're going to use, which says =standardize, the X value that we're interested in standardizing, the mean that we're given, or the average, and the standard deviation. Note that in some problems you might not necessarily be given the mean and standard deviation, but you're given data that you then have to calculate the mean and standard deviation. So it's just an extra step where you have to do the computation for that. but let's go ahead and standardize our data. So I'll go ahead and type equals and standardize, and you notice that Excel tries to guess what I want. So I can just double click on this and it will provide me the function I need. And then I'm going to type in my X value. So Excel provides you the instructions that you need. My X value for part A was 800, so I'll type in 800. I will then type in the comma, because now it's asking, okay, you need to make sure to provide the mean. And in that problem, the mean was given to us as 1,000, so I'll type in 1,000. Then I'll type my next comma, and now I need to enter my standard deviation. And we were given the sample standard deviation of 250, so I'll type in 250, and then close my parentheses. Then when I hit enter, I now have a standardized value of a negative 0.8. Let's repeat the same process for parts B and C of the problem. If I do equals, standardize, double click for speed, I'll type in my X of 1200, my mean of 1000, and my sample standard deviation of 250. Since my mean and sample standard deviation don't change, I'm just using the same ones for the problem. The only thing that's changing in this particular problem is the X, because I want to standardize these different values. So I'll hit close my parentheses and hit enter. And so my standardized value when X is 1200 is 0.8. We'll do one more where X equals 1000. And so I'll do equals standardize. I'll double click, type in my X of 1000, comma, my mean of 1000, comma, and my sample standard deviation of 250, and close parentheses and hit enter. And you'll notice that our Z value here when standardized is 0, because our X here of 1000 equals our sample mean. So when you imagine our distribution curve, we are at the center where our mean falls, and so we have a Z value of 0. And that's how you use Excel to do a variety of things in Chapter 3. Let me know if you have questions.